Is Michael Highsmith joining me from the Show Me Institute. Michael, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, Mark.
Thanks for coming in, braving the cold weather. It's not raining here yet that I'm aware of, but it looks like it may be headed this way. What we're talking about today is pensions. Usually when I talk about pensions, I talk about Illinois, the state of Illinois. They have those big pension bombs for the city of Chicago and these other places that are where they way over promised benefits years ago. People worked for 30, 35 years and retired, and one of these days the system's going to collapse on them. Now, Missouri, we're not in that bad a shape yet, but there is a defined benefit plan in Missouri that Michael's talking to us about. It's called Moser. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's Moser's. That's the Missouri State Employee Retirement System. So,
okay,
like you said, we're not nearly in the situation that Illinois is in right now, but what we're looking at is an economic ticking time bomb, essentially. The way these plans work is they make a certain promise to retirees. When you retire, you're going to get X amount every year, and the way we promise that is we invest money, and hopefully we get ideal returns. And if we don't get these returns, we don't have enough money to promise these retirees what we gave them, and they're left out to dry in the end.
A little risky.
It's a little risky, yeah. And so you look at Moser's returns this past year, they expected 8%, and they received 0.3% return investment. So even if you drop just 0.5%, when you compound it over 30 years, that's a huge difference. And when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar plans, this can have some serious effects on people.
Well, I think any financial advisor worth their salt, it's hard. You never promise return. I mean that's something I did this for a while. You can't look at somebody and say, well, we're going to get you we're going to guarantee you an average of 5 or 6 or 7% growth over the next 30 years. And by the way, here's what you ought to have when you retire. Right. You can't do that because you don't know what the market's going to do.
It's very easy to make a promise today, but it's a lot harder to make that happen, to guarantee it tomorrow. So when it comes down to these kind of things, there's an inherent danger in the plan. You can't guarantee these kind of returns.
Is it a collective bargaining situation where altering it at some point or moving into something different is not an option?
Well, this is a trend that's going on nationwide. There's political incentives behind it because obviously you want to promise the best benefits you can to people that they're going to hear about it here and now. But when a politician doesn't have to deal with that until 30 years down the road, they're not really the one who has to deal with it. So there's a danger there, and you have to be careful about what kind of promises you're going to make, because if the plan's unable to fill them, then taxpayers are on the hook.
Yeah. Let me ask a question that I don't know if you're prepared to answer or not, but the market's at an all-time high right now. The stock market has not done. It's had a few dips the last year. Brexit was bad, and then it recovered pretty quickly. It's at almost 20,000. What in the world were they invested in for the past year that got them a 0.3% return? Do we have any idea? I mean, I guess that includes minus expenses and things like that?
Right.
Okay.
So I haven't broken down Moser's piece by piece, but your typical plan invests in all sorts. It has real estate, it has stocks, it has bonds. It's a completely diversified portfolio. So it's not just an incredibly risky asset, but at the same time, again, none of these returns can be guaranteed. So what would the options be? I mean, more of a 401k type? Yeah, when it comes to this kind of thing, obviously you want to prepare for retirement. I'm not saying you shouldn't save at all.
Sure.
So these pension plans are called a defined benefit pension plan, which is making the promise of a certain benefit when you retire. So an alternative is a defined contribution, which is an IRA, a 401k. I think just about everyone's pretty familiar with that kind of idea.
Yeah, so you put in 3% of yours, and the company matches it or something to that effect.
They'll match it, and whatever your investments accrue over 30 years or whenever you're ready to retire, that's the money you have. That's what's available on retirement.
You're not promised anything,
right?
But you're given X amount of dollars each year to do with as you see fit. You could leave it all in cash if you wanted to.
Yeah, you absolutely could.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly they've gotten in trouble. There are very few places anymore where you can get a defined benefit plan. A few unions, probably, maybe a couple of companies.
So there's a huge difference, actually, between the private sector and the public sector right now. So in Missouri, about 1/3 of government pension plans are defined contribution, so 401ks, those kind of things. But you look at the private sector, and you have 85% that are switching to DC plans because they realize this inherent risk, and they can't afford to make these kind of promises.
Yeah, my father retired from a steel mill, and by the time he retired, their pension plan was a mess. Right. I mean, they realized that they had liabilities that they couldn't fund. Mm-hmm. What do you do? They had to go to court, and a lot of those guys ended up really getting the shaft. So that's certainly a situation you want to avoid if possible. So if it was possible to switch to something like that, is that an option?
Yeah, the long and short of it, honestly, is that it's a problem that has potential to get a lot worse if we don't address it sooner rather than later.
Right.
And whether we address it right now or not, there's going to be a couple increases. There's going to be a couple negative externalities that happen. Either taxes are going to have to go up or employees are going to be shorted on the benefits because of promises that were made 20, 30 years ago. But that being said, It could be a lot worse if we don't take action today.
Oh, sure. Plus, we're talking about what the returns were the last 2 or 3 years when the market's been fairly good. Throw in a 2007 scenario in there where the market drops 30% or 40%. Right. And then they're that much further behind.
Right. And plans like this are struggling all across the nation. If you look at the nationwide unfunded liability, which is the difference between how much plans have on hand and what they're expected to pay, there's over $1 trillion nationwide and statewide plans that are unfunded. So,
yeah. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Listen, Michael, I appreciate you coming in. Michael Highsmith's with the Show Me Institute. You can read more about this story and the other the subject that they're covering right now about how your tax dollars are being spent at the showmeinstitute.org. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you very much for coming in, and be safe out there. Have a good weekend.